What if everything you owned, your savings, your job, your home, disappeared in a matter of months? That's not fiction. It happened, and the warning signs were ignored every single time. Not because people were stupid, but because of the way every human brain is wired. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying how humans make decisions. His conclusion? We don't think in one way, we think in two. System 1 is fast, instinctive, emotional. It reacts before you've even finished reading a sentence. System 2 is slow, deliberate, logical. It's the part of you that does the math, checks the data, and asks, wait, does this actually make sense? The problem? System 1 runs the show most of the time, and financial bubbles are System 1's masterpiece. The 1920s in America felt like a golden age. The economy was booming. Cars, radios, electric appliances were reshaping everyday life. Stocks were rising year after year, and here's where System 1 took over. Kahneman calls it WYSIATI. What you see is all there is. People only saw the gains, rising prices every month, every year. Their brains built a story from that limited data and decided, this is just how markets work. They never stopped to ask what they weren't seeing. Ordinary people, factory workers, teachers, farmers, were borrowing money to invest in the stock market. Why? Because of what Kahneman calls the availability heuristic. We judge how likely something is based on how easily an example comes to mind. In the 1920s, everyone knew someone who had made money in stocks. Stories of overnight wealth were everywhere, so the brain said, this is normal. This is what's happening. This is safe. Nobody was talking about the people who had quietly lost. Those stories weren't available. Then came October 1929. In just 2 days, Black Monday and Black Tuesday, the market lost nearly 25% of its value. Billions disappeared. Panic spread instantly. And here's where another Kahneman principle hit hard: loss aversion. Humans feel the pain of a loss roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. The moment prices started falling, System 1 screamed, "Get out!" Everyone rushed to sell at the same time, and that panic, driven by pure emotion, turned a correction into a catastrophe. What followed was the worst economic crisis in modern history. Unemployment climbed from 3% to over 25%. Thousands of banks collapsed. Families lost savings overnight with no insurance, no protection. How did it get this bad? Kahneman's research points to overconfidence bias, the consistent human tendency to believe we understand the world better than we actually do. Bank executives, investors, and government officials all believed they had the system figured out. That certainty blinded them to the risk building underneath. Millions of families lost everything. Shantytowns called Hoovervilles appeared in city parks. Children went hungry. Farmers were hit by both economic collapse and a catastrophic drought, the Dust Bowl, that destroyed the land. And yet, people struggled to understand how it all happened so fast. Kahneman explains this through the narrative fallacy, our need to create a clean story out of chaotic events. In reality, the Depression wasn't caused by one thing. It was a perfect storm of speculation, debt, weak institutions, and human psychology feeding on itself. 3 psychological forces inflated the bubble. First, anchoring. Once people saw stocks at a certain price, that number became their mental reference point. When prices rose above it, they felt like they were winning. They never questioned whether the anchor itself made sense. Second, representativeness. People saw a pattern. Stocks go up every year. Their brain said, this is what stocks do. They matched the present to a familiar pattern without checking the data behind it. Third, herd behavior. System 1 is wired for social survival. If everyone around you is buying, your brain reads that as a safety signal. To not buy felt dangerous. In 1933, President Roosevelt launched the New Deal: jobs through public works, bank deposit insurance through the FDIC, Wall Street regulations. For the first time, System 2 thinking entered public policy, deliberate, structured, asking, what actually went wrong and how do we build safeguards? But Kahneman would note the bitter irony. System 2 almost always arrives after the damage is done. Prevention requires slow thinking in advance. Crisis response is slow thinking under pressure, and they are not the same thing. The same pattern has repeated itself since the dot-com bubble of 2000, the housing crisis of 2008, crypto cycles, the asset changes. The psychology doesn't. Each time, availability heuristic made people focus on the winners. WYSIATI made them ignore the risks they couldn't see. Overconfidence made institutions believe they had risk under control. And loss aversion turned the eventual decline into a stampede. Kahneman's most important insight is this: we do not learn from history the way we think we do. We learn the story of what happened, but our System 1 remains just as vulnerable as before. So what do you do with this knowledge? Kahneman isn't saying trust no one and invest in nothing. He's saying slow down before you commit. Ask what you're not seeing. Ask who profits if you believe the story being told. Check whether your optimism is based on data or just on the fact that everyone around you is optimistic. The market will always appeal to your System 1. Your job is to give System 2 a seat at the table before it's too late. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic failure, it was a failure of human thinking. At scale, understanding that doesn't make you immune, but it makes you aware. And awareness is where System 2 begins. I'm Belushi, and this is Slow Money, where we take the time to understand what markets are really made of. If this video made you think differently, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.